Today's presentation is the first in a series of presentations that Ameritech has done to take and help educate small businesses about cybercrime. Today we'll be focused on part 1 of the series, Cybercrime, what it is and how does it affect my business. So at the end of the presentation, you will be presented with an email address and a phone number where you can reach out to me if you have any questions or comments or would like to inquire about other parts of the presentation in the series. A little bit about me. My name is Hedrick. I am the owner of Ameritech Computer Consultants and Ameritech Data Solutions. I spent 6 years in the United States Navy aboard the USS Bluefish, and I left there, went to work for the environmental sciences industry, where I decided to take and help develop automated programs to help with the actual reporting processes in the laboratories. I left there and decided to start my own business to take and help small businesses, where I met a gentleman in Wilson, North Carolina named Henry Long. He was the owner of Building Environmental Systems Testing, better known as BEST. And so that's how I became exposed to the test and balance industry. He employed me to take and actually write an actual database to help organize the data in his business, and which is where TabOps was first born. Ameritech has 4 brands to help support your business. We have Ameritech Data Solutions. This is the actual corporation that helps to take and manage data. It's where we develop software. We do software automation, so Excel macros and spreadsheets and Word automation and Outlook automation. We have TabOps. That's our flagship product that we have developed for the test and balance industry. It's an application that we designed to take and help test and balance industries to manage their operations from the time that they receive a request for an estimate to the time they deposit their check in the bank. We have My Tab Time, which is an application we developed to help track time on jobs and for technicians out in the field. And then we have Ameritech Computer Consultants. That is our actual IT division that we use to take and support companies all across the United States with a primary focus on the test and balance industry. Now with the presentation. Cybercrime now accounts for more than 50% of all crime in the U.S., surpassing physical theft, which up until 2017 was the most common type of fraud against corporations for over a decade. This includes pencils, paper clips, staplers, and oh yes, for your test and balance companies, ladders. Malicious hackers have been attacking computers and computer networks at a rate of 1 attack every 39 seconds. With 78% of surveyed organizations being affected by a successful cyber attack in 2018, and each one of those attacks costing the corporation anywhere from $100 to $1 million to recover from. Microsoft Cloud Services, this includes your Microsoft 365 accounts and your other cloud service accounts, are seeing over 300 million fraudulent sign-in attempts every day. So what is cybercrime and how does it affect me and my business? Well, I hear this question often, and it's not easy to explain, right off the bat, because it means different things to different people depending on where you're at and what you're doing and who you're talking to. But today's presentation, we're going to be focusing on the basics of what cybercrime is and what it means to the average user. So the first thing we have to do is we need to define cybercrime. So if Google says cybercrime is criminal activity carried out by means of a computer on the internet. So Google takes 11 words to take and define it. The United States government, on the other hand, says that cybercrime is an activity other than one authorized by or in accordance with the U.S. law that seeks to compromise or impair the confidentiality, integrity, or availability of computers, information, or computer systems, networks, physical or virtual infrastructure controlled by computers or information systems, or the information resident thereon. Again, your tax dollars at work. It took the United States government 46 words of rambling and things that you're like going, what? To take and try to describe what Google described in 11 words. One of my favorite sites, Techopedia, defines cybercrime as a crime in which the computer is the object of the crime, hacking, phishing, or scamming, in which is used as a tool to commit an offense, child pornography, hate crimes, etc. And then cyber criminals may use this computer technology to access personal information, business trade secrets, or use the internet for exploitative or malicious purposes. Criminals can also use computers for communications and document or data storage. I define cybercrime as when cyber criminals launch cyber attacks on your business as an entity or you as an individual. Cyber attacks are typically launched to steal money, gain access to financial or sensitive data, weaken integrity, or disrupt the operations of your company or you as an individual. Attacks often result in crimes such as financial fraud, information or identity theft, i.e. cybercrime. So now that we have the definition of cybercrime, we need to take and discuss some keywords. I'm going to give you a list of keywords here. I'm not going to take and describe each one of them. So if you want to take and actually read them, you'll need to take and stop the presentation and read them. But I'm going to point out some key ones. So for example, in this one here, botnets. So botnets are a group of computers that are working together for a common goal. So if your computer gets infected with an actual bot, what it'll do is it'll connect to other computers in the same programming schema, and they will work together to take and actually mine information from your system or watch what you're doing and record actions and send that on to the parent computer that is collecting all this information. Malware. Malware is an overreaching term that is used to take and describe any of the items that you hear routinely, like viruses, worms, trojans, ransomware. But it is a term that's used to describe hostile or intrusive software that is used for malicious intent against you or on your computer system. Phishing. Phishing is very similar to what it sounds like. It is an attempt to take and acquire sensitive information by casting out information and seeing who that it hooks into. Social engineering. This is by far the most popular method now to take and actually gather information or to steal information from you. So what social engineering is in a nutshell is it exploits your personal vulnerability. For example, you receive an email from Gail. You know Gail. You've worked with Gail before, and she says, hey, here's a link that I think you'll find interesting. And then you click on the link. Well, that link was sent by hackers to take and actually install a program onto your computer. So social engineering was they sent you an email from somebody that you know and therefore you trust, and so therefore you're willing to take and do the action that she has requested. Another one is to take and work against your fear. For example, the IRS has indicated that you owe them $10 million from your last tax, blah, blah, blah. Click on the following link to take and contact the IRS if you want to dispute this or whatever. Again, working on your fear, your reaction is to take and say, hey, no, I don't owe that or whatever. Another one is, hey, we have received notification from Amazon that you have bought blah, 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 blah. Click on the link below for payment information or payment details or shipping information, whatever. You're like, hey, I didn't do that. So you click on it to see what it is. Again, another way of social engineering to feed you information to get you to react. Trojans are programs that get loaded on your computer in some form, fashion, or the other, typically through an email. And what they do is they sit there and they wait. And then they execute at some point in time and they do stuff to your computer. The most common one now, or the one that is the most scary right now, are ransomwares, where the Trojan activates, and what it does is it starts encrypting all the files on your computer and then all the files that it can find around itself. The last one that I want to talk about is zero-day vulnerability. So zero-day vulnerability takes two separate approaches. One is whenever a hacker takes and he releases a program to the world, the amount of time from the day that he pushes go to the time that it is discovered and a remedy is put in place to take in toward the actual actions of that actual item is called zero-day vulnerability. It is the amount of time that everyone is vulnerable to that attack. On the flip side of that, from the day that a legitimate software vendor releases a piece of software until hackers exploit a vulnerability in there and the original developer of the software creates a patch to take and patch up that vulnerability, that too is called zero-day vulnerability. So a lot of people will take and say, my virus detection should get that, or my malware detection should get that, or whatever. And the reality is that your virus protection and your malware protection is only as smart as what it knows. So during this zero-day vulnerability, your virus detection and your malware software does not know about this, so therefore it would not detect it and it would pass straight through. So just because you have a piece of software on there does not mean that you are 100% protected. Origins of cybercrime. So hacking became intermingled with malicious intent in the 70s with a phenomenon known as phreaking. So what would happen is back then, the telephone companies were using digital signals to take and control switches and to take and place long distance phone calls and so forth and so on. And so these guys, this group of people, these phreakers, determined what these code sequences were to get the computer systems to do stuff. For example, deep would allow them to make a long distance phone call and bypass their account. So when you picked up the phone and you dialed one, blah, 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 it wasn't tied to their account. They just went in and they bypassed all that. And so they were able to take and use these code sequences to bypass the security systems on the phone system. So law enforcement had a difficult time with this sort of crime because, one, it was brand new. You know, people thought, oh, God, I don't even know how to take and combat that. So it took time for them to take and figure out how to take and detect that and to be able to take and enforce against it. So by the mid-1980s, cybercrime was established as a common channel to take and destroy computer systems, acquire information, and steal millions in cash. And this is a key point. They're stealing millions of cash in the 1980s. So action was needed. So in 1986, the first cybercrime legislation was passed. Federal Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, making harmful computer activity a felony crime punishable by jail time and fines. So now we have a law in place that will take and actually prosecute people that are committing these cybercrimes. That's wonderful, right? You feel safe, I feel safe. The problem with that is that 96% of all cybercrime originates outside of the United States. Those people typically are not governed by U.S. law, and so therefore they're not a part of this. Also, the cost to take and go get them would far exceed the actual cost to take and recover information in most cases. Current state. In the recent U.S. State of Cybercrime survey, 3 out of 4 companies had indicated that they had had a successful breach in the past 12 months. Cybercrime is increasing at a geometric rate per day. There are roughly 900 phishing attacks per financial institution and 9,000 attempts detected per technology company. So that gives you kind of an understanding of where value is at this point. 900 for a financial institution and 9,000 for a technology company. So data is more valuable to them than actual physical currency or transferring money from a bank. Phishing sites are mimicking all the major technology players such as Google, Apple, Facebook, and Yahoo. These are all potential phishing sites. Also, most common are Dropbox and Box. Those type of actual sharing sites are also being actual mimicked. So be careful with those whenever you get information requesting you to take and access those. Current state is on average 85,000 malicious IPs are launched every day. So what an IP is it's an actual 4-number code that is registered to companies so that you can take and access computer systems in that sequence. So for example, when you go to your internet and you type in www.google.com, the computer behind it says, okay, Google is translated into 74.125.136.99. Every company has an IP address that's on the internet. For example, aabc.com is 104.31.64.180 NEBB is 76.227.214.162, and CxEnergy is 104.196.148.91. So these codes are what identify the corporation. So the code is who the corporation is. So 104.196.148.91 is CxEnergy. But CxEnergy is just a label that's put on top of that. So if I put CxEnergy on top of a different code, then when I clicked on that name, it would go somewhere else. So that's why it's imperative that we take and pay attention to these items here, that 85,000 malicious IPs are launched every day, because it is the IPs that are actually the actual location of where stuff is happening. This results in the fact that in 1 year, users are 30% more likely to take and fall victim to a zero-day phishing attack. Again, we talked about zero-day vulnerability. This is a zero-day phishing attack. Cybercrime is not restricted to desktops alone. Mobile devices have proliferated in recent years, and over 65 to 70% of all retail is conducted on a mobile device. So because of its open marketplace, the Android platform is home to a variety of malware. In particular, in a recent survey, it appears that about 72% of all the apps in the store were considered suspicious, unwanted, or malicious, with Trojans making up the majority of the threats. So when you take and you plug that phone into your computer and you make a network connection between the two, the Trojan can take and detect that there's a connection, and it can launch an actual application to store on your local device. So you have to be careful when you're taking and connecting your phone to your computer as well. Cybercrime makes headline news. Orange County computer network hit by ransomware attacks. As the entire Orange County computer network was out of service Monday after it was attacked by a ransomware virus. We talked about ransomware a little bit ago, causing slowdowns and service problems in key offices such as the Register of Deeds, Sheriff's Office, and the county library. So basically, the whole county's computer network was out of service on Monday. That's a key word there. And that was because that these ransomware viruses were going through and encrypted all the computers. So you talk about that's Register of Deeds. That's all those marriage certificates, property certificates, anything that you register would go into the Register of Deeds. The Sheriff's Office, those are going to be criminal records. Those are going to be upcoming court dates and things like that. County Library is going to be usernames and passwords and book inventories and so forth and so on. So basically, at the time of this article, the attack was still unknown, but it was discovered around 6 a.m. on Monday morning. Further investigation of this attack indicated that an employee had clicked on a link in an email for a free offer, which led to the actual whole county network being shut down. Computer malware shuts down government offices in South Carolina. Malicious software on government computers shut down the Oconee County courthouses and most other county government offices on Thursday, the sheriff's office says. Again, the cause or root cause of this one was a link in an email from a vendor was selected from the procurement department, which led to an actual shutdown of the county's network system. Baltimore. We're going to talk about Baltimore. Baltimore targeted by a ransomware attack. City shuts down most of its servers. This is the second time in just over a year that the city's been attacked by cyber attack. So I mentioned earlier that it is not uncommon for businesses or corporations that have had a successful attack to be attacked again within 12 months. This is a prime example. Of course, this was a little over 12 months, but again, being hacked again after a successful hack the first time. Now, this one in particular was interesting because further investigation on this one had indicated that Microsoft had released, in particular to Baltimore, emails saying, hey, you need to load the latest patches, you're not up to date, to make sure that you are not, to help you prevent, again, cyber attacks. When they went through and they researched this actual encryption code in particular, it was very similar to code that the NSA had created to take and basically launch cyber warfare against other countries. So for whatever reason, Baltimore became affected by software developed by the NSA. All we know is money. U.S. city struggles to fight hackers. So basically, Baltimore joins Atlanta. This is another event where they got hit by the cyber attack. And basically, it says here, the previous month, the city of Atlanta was crippled by a ransomware attack that lasted 2 weeks and cost nearly $3 million. So basically, Atlanta took a $3 million hit just the month before. Ransomware attacks are testing the resolve of cities across America. So here's one. So at a public library in Wilmar, Texas, books are checked out with a pen and paper versus an actual computer. And so what happened is that 22 small cities in Texas were shut down simultaneously due to cybercrime. So what happened is that there was a company that had basically sold them software for all 22 of those small towns. And so what happened was that the parent company got breached by a cyber attack, and that cyber attack then distributed itself to all 22 of those small cities and shut them all down. Investigation on this in particular, this attack in particular, also indicated that it was via a email that had gotten through the actual firewall, and someone acted upon that email. What's the cost of cybercrime? Well, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, in partnership with McAfee, instituted an actual economic impact of cybercrime. And so they concluded that close to $6 billion, nearly 1% of the global GDP, is lost to cybercrime each year. This was effective in 2017. So the date of this article was 2017. The report attributes this growth over 3 years to cybercriminals quickly adopting new technologies and the ease of cybercrime growing as actors leverage black markets and digital currencies, i.e. Bitcoin. And so Bitcoin is something that we'll talk about later in a different presentation. Cost of cybercrime in the United States alone. So it is predicted that cybercrime is going to cost upwards of $6 trillion annually by 2021. It is predicted that cybercrime is going to cost the U.S. upwards of $6 trillion annually by 2021. That's next year, ladies and gentlemen. So next year it is expected that the U.S. will spend $6 trillion annually on cybercrime. That could be partly paid by you if you do not take corrective actions. So it is estimated that malicious cyber activity cost the U.S. economy between $57 billion and $100 billion in 2016 alone. So it is going to go up from $109 billion to $6 trillion in 2021. The cost of cybercrime are extremely high these days. This year, we've seen how a church lost $1.75 million in a BEC scam. 2 cities in Florida paid ransom totaling over $1 million after ransomware attacks. British Airways had to pay a fine of £183 million. BEC stands for Business Email Compromise. Though we do not have to wait some time to discover the total cost of cybercrime in 2019, we now have published figures that demonstrate the economic damage that it is caused in 2018. 2018, a lucrative year for cybercrime. So on July the 9th, the Internet Social Online Trust Alliance published its 2018 report, Cyber Incident and Breach Trends Report. According to its calculations, the worldwide economic impact of cybercrime was at least $45 billion in 2018. One of the most shocking pieces of data is the fact that according to the OTA's calculations, 95% of security breaches could have been prevented. 95% could have been prevented. The report also explains that BEC scams experienced a strong growth in 2018. The data directly from the FBI indicated that the U.S. alone, there were 20,000 incidents with a total loss of $1.3 billion. So business email compromise cost businesses $1.3 billion in 2018, and that's distributed over 20,000 individual incidents. So now we're going to discuss why people commit cybercrime. There are three primary factors as to why someone commits cybercrime, and I'm going to discuss each one of them in detail. The first one is it's easy. The next one is it's profitable. And lastly, it's hard to get caught. So it's easy. Create a simple phishing program. There's one there. Shell execute, delete C : star. The next one here, this is how to encrypt all the files on a computer. Very simple ransomware program. Or you can simply go and buy one from the internet. So basically you can log on to the dark web. You could go take and make a purchase of one. You can modify it, add your own signature to it. You can take and throw it out there, and voila poof, now you have your own phishing program. It's easy. You purchase one of those 85,000 malicious IP addresses, you go and you create this website, and then you make it all look legitimate, and then you go to the next step. So these could be legitimate websites or social media websites. And so, for example, like employment websites, Indeed, resumes, they could have embedded cybercrime or ransomware trojans or viruses or worms attached to them. Self-help guides, YouTube videos, any of those things could have stuff embedded in them. Again, you know, a lot of them are tested for uploads and stuff like that. But the reality is remember that 0-day vulnerability. So I create something new, I go and I release it. And so from the time it gets detected till the time that actually there's something to stop it, that is my 0-day vulnerability gap. So any of these legitimate websites could contain one of those items. You could take and create a copy of trusted websites, make it look just like the other one. For example, Citibank's Facebook or Pinterest. Look again, that's Citibank's with an S, Facebook with a space, or Pinterest with an E. So again, make sure that you really are seeing what you think you're supposed to be seeing. It's easy. I create an email, I take and actually put links to this malicious website that I've created on there, and then I'm ready to go. So phishing is as much a technical attack as it is a social engineering method. For any phishing attempt to be successful, a phishing mail must pass through software filters, be acted upon by the recipient, i.e. you, and then expose sensitive data. So this may sound like slim odds for success, though the Via Mail Spring 2019 email fraud landscape report released recently indicates that at least 3.4 billion emails are sent out each day. 3.4 billion emails are sent out each day. It's easy. Over 30% of all phishing emails received in the US are opened each day. 30%. All right, so I'm going to take and show you an example of what I'm talking about. I suspect that all of you are familiar with this email that came from Anna. It's like for CxEnergy 2020, the virtual experience. So it says here to unsubscribe, use the link at the bottom of the email, click here to view online, and then it goes through here, right? So this is the email that everyone got out there. Absolutely. Well, let's see. I'm going to click here to register now. And what that does is it brings up my website. If I go, I want to click to view the complete exam schedule, something else that you might want to do, also brings up my website. So let's say, for example, I had to want to unsubscribe. I didn't mean to get this one. So a lot of times you'll get an email in there and you think, okay, I'm going to be nice. I'm going to go ahead and just unsubscribe. When you click on unsubscribe, voila poof, you're now at the malicious website. So even legitimate looking emails, this email here, which looks exactly like the email that you were presented from CxEnergy, I have compromised it to take and make it redirect to where I want it to go. What you need to do when you get something like this and you see a click here to do something, never click there to do something. So what you would want to do is you would want to take and place your mouse over top of that actual item, and then you'd want to take and look and see what the underlying hyperlink is going to take and put you to. This is going to tell you where that's going to go. And so for those of you that are unfamiliar, then my website is www.ameritechds.com. If you take and you come down here and you look at this one here and you place your mouse over it, you see that it's aabccg.informex.net. So again, knowing what you're looking for or making sure that the hyperlinks make sense is important whenever you're taking and receiving emails. My recommendation to people in general is never, ever, ever click on a link in an email unless you absolutely have to, or you absolutely know that it's from a legitimate person and that you're meant to do so. If it's like, for example, CxEnergy, go to their website. They're going to have information on their website to allow you to take and register. You're going to have the ability to take and unsubscribe. You're going to have the ability to take and get the information that you need to do directly from their website. So be cautious. The next thing you do after you send out that malicious email is you wait. So 30% of the emails that I sent out are now going to be acted upon. So let's see what kind of money I'm going to make. Okay, it's profitable. Cybercrime created over $1.5 trillion in profit in 2018 alone. We already know from previous slides that we're expected to be, cybercrime overall is going to be $6 trillion by 2021. $6 trillion by 2021. That's some pretty decent profit. For an individual with the right skill set, cybercrime can be incredibly lucrative. So if you know what you're doing, you can make money at this. And then an individual cyber criminal can make upwards of $500,000 a year simply in trafficking the stolen data. So let me talk to you about how this happens. So how many people out there go and get gas at their local market? Somewhere around their house. I'm going to come from work. I'm going to stop at the gas station. I'm going to come home. And so you go to the gas pump and you take and you put your credit card in there, right? And so you pull it out and it requests your 5-digit zip code, right? So you put in your 5-digit zip code and you take, okay, great. All right. So now then what, you feel pretty safe about that, or you feel pretty confident about that security measure. So they're matching your credit card to your zip code and they're comparing the two pieces of information. So there's this device out there, what is called as a skimmer. And so what people will do is they will take and insert these skimmers into these credit card readers of gas pumps. So when you stick your credit card in there, it's going to take and read that credit card number off that and store it into a microchip inside of that device. Cyber criminals will go by after a period of time, they'll pull the skimmer off and they have a bunch of credit card numbers. Guess what? They also have your zip code. The reason being is because the majority of people purchase gas in the zip code where they live. So if I take this collection of credit card numbers that I have now and I attach that to the zip code of the store where I purchased my gas, I now have the two pieces of information that I need to go create a duplicate credit card and go buy gas anywhere I want to, or create a duplicate credit card and make purchases pretty much anywhere I want to. Feeling pretty safe about buying that gas in your local neighborhood now? Maybe you might want to change gas stations. It's hard to get caught. Is it worth it? Well, for you and I, if someone took and hacked into my system and stole my data or compromised my personal identity or whatever, absolutely. I would say track them down and, you know, beat them senseless, or at least put them in jail, something to that effect. The reality is that that is probably not going to happen, and here's the reason. So the majority of cybercrime in the U.S. happens outside the U.S., 96%, as we learned from a previous slide. So 96% of that crime happens outside the United States. So in order for the United States to prosecute someone that is outside the United States, they have to coordinate our government with their government to take and go track down that person and to go get them and to bring them in and then extradite them to the United States and then have them stand trial and be convicted, all for the amount of money that came out of your bank account. It's probably not going to happen. The cost to take and prosecute someone for a cybercrime is exponential as compared to the actual individual event. So even though this is going to be, even though by 2021 there's going to be $6 trillion in profit, it's not a $6 trillion single event. It's a bunch of $100,000 events, you know, $200,000 events, things like that. And so it is not cost effective for governments to be able to take and prosecute this. And cyber criminals know that, which is why they feel safe in doing it. Follow the money, or should I say Bitcoin? So let's talk a little bit about this Bitcoin thing. So typically when you're talking about ransoms or you're talking about paying fees for cybercrime or whatever, they're always going to take and request Bitcoin. And the reason being is because it is a digital currency that they can hide behind a digital screen without having any like home address or whatever, because there is no such thing as a home address when it comes to digital currency. Digital currency is controlled by a digital login and a digital PIN. As long as you have your digital login and your digital PIN, then you have access to your digital wallet, which is where you store your digital currency. So currencies are one of the most popular ones, obviously, is Bitcoin. People have heard that most frequently, so that's the one we'll talk about. So Bitcoins have an actual value. So when you have a single Bitcoin, it has some translated value. We'll refer to it as an exchange rate. So in 2011, a single Bitcoin had a value of 30 cents. By 2013, that single Bitcoin now had a value of $13.30. In 2017, that single Bitcoin now had a value of $998. By 2019, that single Bitcoin is now worth over $10,000. So this Bitcoin thing, there's value to it. So when a cyber criminal says, I want you to pay me in Bitcoin, they're actually making a pretty decent amount of money, number one. And number two is it's hard to take and track back where the money originates or where the money is going to. So Bitcoin is the currency of cyber criminals whenever they're doing business. Who takes Bitcoins? Well, you know, the reality is there's lots of people that actually accept Bitcoins. I have compiled a list of some popular ones that I think there'll be 3 or 4 on here that everybody will recognize. And these people all accept Bitcoin for payment. Wikipedia, Microsoft, Expedia, KFC, Papa John's, Subway, Overstock, Playboy, Virgin Galactic, Cheapo Air, Newegg, Amazon, though not directly, and then AT&T and Dish Network. So these are a list of just a few companies that accept Bitcoin for payment. That's going to be one expensive pizza. Most likely, cyber security threats that your business will be exposed to will be cyber fraud, including phishing, malware attacks, viruses, worms, trojans, spyware, rootkit, viruses, and so forth. Ransomware attacks, that's probably the most popular one right now. Drive-by downloads, that is a method by which you get any of those other things. Hacking, including distributable denial of service attacks, key logging, password decryption, and out-of-date unpatched software. So Microsoft releases security patches based on the fact that they are aware of vulnerabilities that come up during that 0-day vulnerability period. So whenever Microsoft releases those security patches, it is advantageous to you as an individual to go ahead and patch your software when they come out so that you don't fall in that gap of being vulnerable after Microsoft closes off the actual security piece. Impact of cybercrime on your business. That's the next section. So, impact of cybercrime on your business. A successful cyber attack can cause major damage to your business. It can affect your bottom line as well as your business standing and consumer trust. The impact of security breach can be broadly divided into 3 categories as well: financial, reputational, and legal. And we will talk about each one of these categories. Financial first. So, cyber attack often results in substantial financial loss arising from theft of corporate information, theft of financial information, i.e. your bank details, your payment card details, theft of physical money, disruption of your business, i.e. inability to carry out normal activities while you recover, and then loss of businesses or contracts. Businesses that suffer from a cyber breach will also generally incur costs associated with repairing the affected system, the network, and devices that are associated with them. So not only are you having to deal with your loss of your business during the time that you are compromised, you also have to now take and patch or fix what caused the breach. For example, it could be you need better firewalls, you need better email scanners, you need better antivirus, malware. Something has to be upgraded or changed. So in May of 2017, Target paid out an $18.7 million settlement over a large-scale data breach that took place in 2013. The company said that the total cost of the breach was over $202 million. So $202 million was the cost of the breach, and that is litigation, and that is cost to take in repair, research to figure it all out. So some of the really high dollar ones in the recent past are Equifax, that is $650 million. British Airways has spent $230 million on a breach. Uber, $148 million on a breach. Marriott International, $124 million on a breach. Yahoo, $117 million on a breach. Tesco Bank, $21 million on a breach. Target, $18.5 million on a breach. And then Anthem Healthcare, $16 million on a breach. So these price tags can be very costly. So here's a case study. So corporate loss calculator, $1 million in annual sales, approximately 250 business days in a year. So that means it's a $400 per day sales day. Service-based industries, so typically service-based industries are 50-50 labor versus sales ratio. So $2,000 per day to earn that actual business. So total loss per day is $6,000. So basically on a $4,000 sales day, it took you $2,000 to earn it. So $6,000 is a loss per day. Total cost due to out of commissions is equal to total number of days times the total loss per day. So cost to be down for 1 week would be 5 times 6 or $30,000 to be down for 1 week of business. So a loss of $30,000. IT recovery costs. So national average IT rate is $150 an hour. They work 10 hours a day. Therefore, $1,500 a day times 5 days is $7,500 just to take and pay your IT guys for a week to take and actually recover the data. If they travel to your site, then there's going to be additional costs such as travel portal to portal and per diem, which is typically $250 to $300 a day for a total of 5 days. That's another $1,250 to add on top of that. So case study, the equipment and software costs. So then now you have to replace disk drives, you have to replace computer softwares, you have to replace routers, switches, etc. So all that cost gets added onto the top of that other cost. So total cost for 1 week, $30,000 out of commission, $87.50 for IT recovery plus any travel expenses, cost of the equipment and software in order to do that. Minimum realized cost for 1 week for a $1 million customer is about $38,750. This does not take into consideration your reputational cost, the backlog cost, rescheduling, all of that other costs that are associated with doing business. How do I know this? September 2018, I got a call from a client indicating that they'd been hacked. Cause. After a lengthy investigation, it was determined that an employee opened an email from a client. When he clicked on the link in the email and nothing happened, he dismissed it. Downtime was they were out of commission for 2 days, physically not working for 2 days. Normal activities were limited for a period of 2 weeks. Took over 1 month to completely restore operations to normal. Total cost, $250,000 actual cost. April 2019, got a call from an associate indicating that their client had been hacked. We had previously discussed the September event, and both of us instituted new procedures and policies, one of which was 2FA or MFA, multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication. The cause? An investigation revealed that an employee upset by the 2FA requirement because it took too much time had it removed from his system. Once that was done, a brute force attack was able to infiltrate his system and deposit a ransomware time bomb. Downtime. Out of commission, 2 days. Partial services restored within a week. Normal operation was restored within 2 weeks. Cost, $300,000. Now, the difference in these two case studies here is that in this case study here, the actual cost was $250,000, but the out-of-pocket cost for the customer was only $25,000. Now, again, $25,000 is a large check to have to write, and especially for you test and balance firms. But remember, it's a lot cheaper than $250,000. So the difference is this first company, they had cyber insurance. So ironically, just less than 6 months prior to this event happening, their insurance agent had approached them and said, hey, we've got this, insurance, this cyber insurance rider, and we think that you should take and have it on your policy. And they're like, how much is it? And they're like, well, it's $250 a year, I think. And so they said, okay, fine, we'll go ahead and do that. And sure enough, it paid off after they had an event. Reputational. Trust is an essential element to customer relations. Cyber attacks can damage your business reputation and erode the trust your customers have for you. So you guys have spent years in developing your relationships with your customers, and in order to take and actually maintain that, you put a lot of effort into your brand and your quality and what you do to take and keep them happy. This in turn can lead to loss of customers, loss of sales, and reduction in profits. Your company's reputation brand bleeds into all aspects of your business, and that includes your growth and revenue. Data can be restored and lost money can be atoned for, but your reputation brand can take decades to rebuild. It only takes one misstep to ruin the perception of a brand overnight. All of those brand loyalists who bought from your company because they liked your brand and what it represented may now see that brand in a completely different light. Once a customer feels that a company is unable to keep them and their personal or financial information safe, it's game over. So I know that most of you probably remember the Volkswagen scandal where the emissions tests were being falsely elevated by the company to take and actually cause their vehicles to rate higher. And so it come to find out that they lost probably in the neighborhood of 15 to 20% market share by that one event. So brand loyalists will go, okay, I'm done with this. I'm going to, trade my car in, or I'm going to not purchase this anymore or whatever, because stuff like that happens. Legal. I am not a lawyer by no means. So the information that I'm presenting in this section is gathered from speaking to lawyers and or doing further research. Data protection and privacy laws require you manage the security of all personal data you hold, whether on your staff or your customers. If this data is accidentally or deliberately compromised and you have failed to deploy appropriate security measures, you may face fines and regulatory sanctions. And I almost put you will face instead of you may face, but the reality is that it's more than likely that somebody's going to take and try to point the finger at you to say, why did you not protect our data? Impact of cyber attack on your business. So for small to medium-sized businesses, the damage caused by a cyber attack can prove fatal. 60% of businesses fold within 6 months of falling victim to a cyber attack. 60% of businesses fold within 6 months of falling victim to a cyber attack. Don't be one of them. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email me. My email address is dhedrick@ameritechds.com. Or if you would rather and want to reach out to me via phone, you can at 828-394-0050. We're always available to take and answer your questions, and we'll be more than glad to take and actually talk to you about doing additional seminars for your organization or to represent this seminar to your organization in a live environment. Thank you and have a great day.